In today's episode, you'll learn how to make delicious kosher braised lamb shank with polenta using Prairie Street Prime's USDA lamb shanks and these fresh ingredients.
Oh my God. If you're a lamb lover, you'll be in heaven. Welcome to Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen. I'm Chef Erica, and today in the kitchen, we're going to be working with one of my favorite products, which is lamb. And specifically, these incredibly high quality lamb shanks from Prairie Street Prime. So I've been a chef and culinary educator and food media host for over 20 years. And one of my favorite things to do is work with new products and come up with new recipes. So what I'm doing today is kind of a little bit of a flavor twist on a very classic recipe, which is a braised lamb shank with polenta. And all I'm doing a little is throwing in just some extra flavoring, some extra spices in there. So I'm going to braise these beautiful lamb shanks today with a little bit of cinnamon and some prunes. And they'll be braised in red wine. And that combo is so delicious. It's like a little Middle Eastern. It's a really nice festive holiday dish. It's great for parties. It's, just a really nice, warm, flavorful dish. I'm very excited. I love it. So we're going to get started with this today. And the first thing that I need to do is I want to get this meat patted dry. It's super important when you're cooking protein in hot oil to always make sure it's dry. So I'm just patting those dry with a paper towel. And then I'm going to season the meat. So I'm going to take some kosher salt and give it a nice liberal sprinkling there of my salt. And because this is a somewhat spiced dish, it's not spicy, it's not hot, but it's got some bold seasoning, I'm gonna hit it with a good amount of black pepper too. And that combination of the black pepper and the prunes and the cinnamon and the red wine is just delicious. I'm gonna go to the stove and we're gonna start to get these browning. Okay, so I have a nice hot pan. I'm adding some olive oil. Because this dish has a slightly Mediterranean flavor, I am using olive oil for cooking. And then I'm going to lay these right in that hot oil. And we're going to get them nice and golden brown in the pan. You want to take your time with this step and allow this to really happen. Don't ever rush your browning. This is the most important step in cooking this dish. So I'm giving these about 3 minutes per side, just to really guarantee that I get that nice crust on there. Okay, let's take a peek. We're going to flip these over now. Yeah, that looks great. So you can see that I have really nice color on that now. It's getting pretty golden brown, looking good. Now, once these are nice and dark brown on both sides, I'm going to take them out of the pan and just set them aside for a few minutes. And then I'll be adding my aromatic vegetables, what's called my mirepoix. And in this case, my mirepoix is shallots that I've quartered lengthwise and some large cut celery and carrots. You'll notice that these are cut pretty big, and that's because this will be in the oven for like a good hour and a half. So you don't have to cut this stuff so tiny because it's gonna have a long cooking time. All right, I think it's time. Let's get these out. So I'm just putting them on my little rack. And now I'm gonna add a little bit more oil to my pan. And in we go, my shallots, carrots, and celery. And I'm gonna add a little pinch of salt to my vegetables also. That's gonna help to pull moisture out of the vegetables and help them cook faster. And in with my vegetables, I'm going to add a cinnamon stick and some thyme sprigs. And I like to get these in here now before I add any liquid so that the herbs and the spices can actually get nice and hot in there with the oil and really develop their flavor. Now, also along with my aromatic vegetables, I'm adding a good amount of garlic. This is about 4 cloves of garlic, and all I did was peel it and smash it. You don't have to chop it up because it's gonna be in there for a really long time. And you notice that I added the garlic a little bit later than the other vegetables, and that's to make sure that my garlic doesn't burn. Okay. So let's add that tomato paste now. So what I have here is about a tablespoon or so of tomato paste. That goes right in. And then what I actually want to do here with the tomato paste is kind of mash it into my vegetables. We literally want to fry up the tomato paste a little bit. That's looking really good. This is the kind of color we're looking for in a dish like this. So in go our little prunes, and not too many because you don't want this to be too sweet. You just want a little hint. And then the stars of the show, the lamb shanks, they're going back in too. We're gonna lay them right in there. So now we add the wine. The wine is a really important part of this dish. It adds depth and acidity. I have a good kosher red wine here that I like to use for cooking. And we're gonna add a good amount of it, like about a cup. And we wanna bring that to a boil and let it cook for a minute or two, because what we're doing here is we're burning off the alcohol. And then I'm adding some chicken stock. Now when we braise, we're not going for full immersion in liquid. Braising is a partially immersed dish. That way we get a super concentrated sauce. If we have too much of a ratio of liquid to solids in here, we'll wind up with something a little bit soupy, and what we want is a really nice sauce. So I'm just bringing this back up to a boil. I'll turn these over once or twice just to make sure all those flavors are getting all over everything. That looks great. And then this is ready for the oven. So that's it. It's very simple. You just brown your meat, you brown your vegetables, a little tomato paste, a little wine, a little stock, and we're ready to go in the oven. And then you can put it in the oven and you don't even have to think about it for a while. Now, when we braise also, we want to cover the pan. So I am putting a lid on this, and now I'm gonna move it to my oven. And then we'll check this in about an hour and 20 or so to see where we're at in terms of tenderness. Okay, now while my lamb is braising, I'm going to make some polenta. So polenta is just a pretty name for cornmeal, basically. So I have a pot of boiling water here, and I'm adding a decent pinch of salt, about a good teaspoon of salt into that. And I'm gonna start adding my polenta, and it's just important that you add it kind of steadily but gradually and whisk. Otherwise, you kind of risk lumps, and we don't want lumps in our polenta. So just kind of stir it in and whisk, and stir it in and whisk. And depending on the kind of polenta you buy, it can take anywhere from about 5 minutes up to about 20 minutes. It has to do with how coarse it's ground. And it starts to thicken up pretty quickly, so you really wanna watch it. And you do want to keep it moving so it doesn't stick to the bottom of your pan. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of vegan, non-dairy kosher butter to this. And that just makes it creamier, silkier, a little bit richer. And just stir that in so that it melts. And if you want to serve it soft and creamy, it's ready to go. Just taste it for salt. If it's how you like it, just serve it up, like mashed potatoes. But instead, what I'm going to do, there we go, is I'm going to take my little tray and make sure the tray either has some oil on it or you've sprayed it, because otherwise it'll just stick. And I'm going to just turn it right out onto my little tray, like that, and spread it around so that I get like a flat pan full of it. Like if I was making a cake. Now I'm just gonna let this cool down, and then once it's cool, I'll put it in the refrigerator. Okay, are you ready for the big reveal? Because I am so excited. I could smell this from the oven across the kitchen. Smells amazing. Now this was in my oven for about an hour and 20, and it's just right. But remember, every oven is different, so you do want to start checking it right around that point. And of course, with a braise, the way to know that it's done is to get in there with a fork and see if it's tender. I mean, check that out. That looks beautiful. And let's take a fork and see. Now, I don't want to pull this apart because I want to serve it in one piece, but this fork goes right in. It's like silk, okay? That's what we're looking for. It should just yield to your fork's pressure. So that looks amazing. So I'm actually going to keep it covered so it stays nice and toasty warm. And let's talk about that polenta. So here is that polenta. Remember, it was a hot, thick puree, almost like a mashed potato consistency. I spread it on my little oiled tray. I put it in the fridge, and now, boing, it's firm. It really firms up. It's kind of amazing. And I cut it very easily, nice sharp knife. You can cut it into different shapes, whatever you want it to look like. So now I'm gonna take this to the stove, and I'm going to just fry it until it's crispy in a little bit of olive oil. So I am using non-stick pan for this because the polenta is a starch, so it can be a little bit sticky. And I'm adding some olive oil, about a tablespoon. You want this to get crisp, so you do want to use a decent amount of oil in there. And then I'm going to just take my little triangle of polenta, and I'm going to put it right in there in that hot oil. And we're gonna just let it sit there for a bit and let it get nice and golden brown and crisp. So let's take a look at this and see if it's ready to flip. Beautiful. So that's the color we're looking for, nice and golden brown. This way we'll have this really good contrast of textures also, because we'll have crispy exterior and creamy interior. And really, isn't that what we want in our starches? So I'll give this second side time to get crisp, and then I'll put it on the plate. Okay, so here's my crispy polenta, and we will put a shank on the plate. So I think I'll do this guy. Here we go. And then we have to get some of this great sauce with some of the prunes and some of the vegetables. And I'm gonna go right over my shank. So I'm just gonna put a little more sauce on there. I like my lamb saucy. And then, of course, we always wanna make our food look beautiful, and that means we want a little more visual appeal. So because there's thyme in the dish, sometimes I'll do like a little fresh thyme sprig maybe on there. So I like a little bit of fresh green herb sprinkled on my meat dishes. It just brightens things up. It's a nice contrast. So just a little bit of fresh chopped parsley right on there. So let's taste this super premium, top of the line, best lamb. Make sure I get a little bit of sauce in there. Oh my gosh. If you're a lamb lover, you'll be in heaven. It's so tender. It's still really moist and juicy in there. And then here's, of course, the complete package with the polenta and everything. So good. This is a winner of a dish.
Coming up next on the Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen channel, Chef Kendra will show us how to make her delicious kosher Hawaj Miami-style short ribs.
Oh yeah, this looks amazing.
So I hope you'll make this for yourself at home, for your family. If you're interested in doing that, all the recipes and ingredients that you'll need are right below. Join us here every Sunday at 2 o'clock, because that's when we put up new recipes and new videos every week. So make sure you always check back in. And I hope you love this lamb dish as much as I did. I'm Chef Erica, and thanks for joining me so much today here in the Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen, your kosher luxury meat experience. And don't forget to subscribe to Prairie Street Prime's Culinary Kitchen. Send us a comment or two if you have something to say, like us, do all of those things that you do on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me today in the Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen.